Welcome back. We are now on our day 2 for this week's session. This is Sir Bell, and I hope you're doing great today. Prepare your pen and paper before we begin. Alright, so last meeting, you learned about the steps in scientific method. So you have observe or question, research, hypothesize, test and experiment, analysis, and conclude as our steps in scientific method. Before we begin our activity for today, let's have first a recap about all of the steps in scientific method. So the first one is observe and question. It's doing an investigation or scientific investigation. Of course, there's always a problem that you need to solve. And you start with observing by using your senses or asking some questions about a certain problem. And after that, you start doing your research. How will you solve that problem? And then, when you have already some solution, you start your hypothesis. When you say hypothesis or you are hypothesizing, you are giving your educated guess or you are giving your prediction on how the outcome of your experiment or your investigation will happen. Then, the most common um, the most common way I mean the most common way to describe a hypothesis is that it is consists of if and then statements. Then after that you have your test or experiment. Okay, so test experiment, this is now you are acting up your hypothesis. For example, if you say, if I do this, then this is what will happen. That's your hypothesis. And in your test or experiment, of course, you will really do that. You will experiment on that hypothesis. And then you have your results during your experiment. That's the time you have your analysis. And in your analysis, it will lead to your conclusion, which is the final results of your investigation. Okay, so last meeting also I gave you an activity about this one, wherein you are tasked last meeting to arrange which comes first among all of these statements. Okay, and you did great by doing that. You did it correctly, and this is the correct order of our activity yesterday. So you have the first statement as our observe, followed by research, hypothesize, experiment, analyze, and conclude. So in the first statement, what happened here is that the mother, okay, observed, or the problem here is that she observed that her plants or her flowers on her vase wilt, or should I say, have a small or short vase life, and it lasts only for a couple of days, and that's her problem. Then she followed up by doing some research on what will be the substances that she will use to improve or to lengthen the vase life of the flowers. For the third one, she said here to her son or to her children, to her child, that if she use coconut water as water in the vase, then the flower will have a longer vase life. So in this statement, she is hypothesizing, or she gave an hypothesis on what will be the outcome of her or her prediction on her problem. Then, on her experiment, she set two vases with different waters in it. She wrote A for vase with tap water and B for coconut water, which means she is acting up already her hypothesis. And the penultimate step, the analysis, she waited for days and even tallied the results of the observation on a table she designed as a tool for experiment. It's very important to take note that in analysis, you need to have your table or measuring tool in order for you to write down the results of your experiment. Because for example, if you have your experiment and you did not write it down, then what's the sense of your experiment? And lastly, the conclusion. So you base your conclusion on the analysis that you made earlier. So the mother, when she observed, she conducted the experiment, she analyzed it, using her table, and then she come up with the results that her observation that using coconut water will really extend the vase life of the flower. And that's her conclusion, which is ready for sharing or ready for publishing. Okay, so for today, the activity is the same with what happened to the mother situation. However, let's start first with the learning target for this activity. So the learning target is that you are going to apply scientific method in formulating a problem and designing a process for investigation. So I hope you are already familiar with the steps in scientific method so that you can perform this activity well. Okay, what are the instructions? So the instructions, you are going to choose one problem among the choices and solve this problem using the scientific method. Write the process done. In solving this problem, go to Google form provided to answer. So the choices are A. I am always late whenever I ride a bike. B. The plant won't grow inside my dark room. So basically, all of these choices here are problems, which is the first step in scientific method to identify your problem or to observe. So for the first statement, the student observed that he is always late whenever he ride a bike. And for the second statement, the person observed that the plant that he have in her dark room are not growing. So all of these are problems. And the first step in scientific method is observe or question. So that's the first step. So how will you do it? How will you do the activity? So when you go to the Google site, which is provided already on the Google site, when you go to Google form, which is provided on my Google site, you'll be directed to this activity. So the first step is that you identify your problem first. So you choose which of this is your problem. If you choose A, then click this box. If you choose B, click this box. So after you click that one, after you choose your problem, you start writing a hypothesis about that problem. Then, after that, write your test or how will you test your hypothesis? Write the process. The same with analysis. How will you conduct your analysis in your experiment? And after that, give us the conclusion, or should I say an example of your conclusion about your experiment. And lastly, write what will be the apparatus or what will be the materials that you will use in this experiment. How will you write? What will you write here? What will you write um, in this boxes? So it's the same thing with what we did with the mother's situation. So these are the process that you did on her experiment. Okay, it just happened that for this part it's already given, um, which is the this one. You choose only which of this is your problem or observation, and that's the time you start writing your other parts. Okay, so if you have any questions, just go to my um, email address and send me an email, or if you can send me a message through Facebook or text, you can do that as well. Okay, goodbye for now, and I hope you can finish this activity on time. See you next time.